Oh,
Hi everybody, how's everyone doing? Hi Tiril,
hey,
how are you?
hey. Ooh,
How are you today?
I am good. I see that. Maybe I should be a little bit
Oh,
more
hello.
centered like you.
You got this. There we go. You look tall
Yeah.
now.
Do I?
Yeah.
Well, I can use the extra inch or two. Why do I even say inch? I use centimeters.
Yeah,
So
you do. Yeah, I could a few centimeters you could use. Um, hey everyone. I'm for those who haven't been on our Vev Lounge before. This is a sort of space where we have like a subject which we talk about, and today's subject is animations in web design. And usually Marlin's with us, but she's away this week, so I have a lovely special guest, Tyrrell. I will let you introduce yourself, Tyrrell. What do you do at Vev?
yeah. Hi everyone. You might have seen me here before, second time around. So thanks for having me back, Lewis.
That's okay.
No, I'm a product manager here at Vev, but I also work as a product specialist from time to time next to you, Louis. So yeah, I know a thing or two about the platform and how to use it. So
Very
I'm
good.
super excited to be here today and yeah, just go over building a little bit more in public because we know that the people want to see how to do stuff. Yeah, so we can help out with that.
Awesome. And I, as Till mentioned, I'm product specialist, so you might see my face around quite a lot on videos and things like that, and obviously these webinars. But I also do onboarding for clients, and generally, sort of my approach to show you guys how to use Vev and use it in the best way that you can. What we're going to do right off the bat is open out the Q&A. So in the chat, I believe, once I've now started this, you'll be able to ask questions. So when we get to the build in public stage in a little while, you'll be able to ask questions and we'll go through on how to cover certain things. We're covering animation today, but the questions don't need to be specifically animation related. What we're also sort of stretching the meaning of animation a little bit by looking at something which we like to call fluidity in pages. So there's kind of two design concepts, and we've got a video coming out about this soon. Is the first is interactivity, and then the other is fluidity. So interactivity is, I mean, it sounds pretty self-explanatory, but interactivity is sort of like the user's input and how the web page reacts to it. So that could be something like say like a labeled images, or if you want to click and drag for an image compare, or if you've got like a 3D element which you can physically click and move around. Whereas fluidity is where animation sort of fits into nicely, is where you have fluidity to your page which makes the page more exciting, more engaging, because things are moving in. Maybe you have like a mouse parallax, so you're moving the mouse and items on the page are moving around with it. And that just gives the user who's visiting the page, something that's a little bit engaging without being too overwhelming. So, on that note, we'll be moving and talking about animation. But before we start as well, for the last couple of webinars we've done, we've had two agencies with us. So one was H Labs and one was Presswork. And we've actually have a blog which we've written with those two companies now, which I'm just going to share in the chat. I'm just going to put them on the screen as well in a second. Oh, I have enabled the chat, so if anyone wants to say hi, we are open out in the chat. I'm just going to put these in here. And then I'm going to open this first one, and I'm just going to give you a little preview of what it looks like. I'm not going to go into it in too much detail. Chrome tab. There we go. So the first one here is this HLab one. So this is HLab. So they are a partner with us. So they use Vev on a very regular basis because they are a no-code agency. So just some words from the founder, Hans Springer, basically going through what no-code means to them and how it's basically allowed them to work with companies to get content out really quickly and in like a really professional manner. So we have a lot of their work on our showcase page as well, which is really cool. Yeah, some nice quotes in there and some videos. Obviously, this is built in Dev 2, like all of our blog content is. And they've also got some, like a cool video in there. So really encourage you to have a look at that when you have some free time. And then the second article we have is from Pressworks. I think it is. Let me open this one. So it follows very, very similar. So it breaks down how they use no code and how they use it with their clients. But yeah, this is Presswork. We had Bjorn with us last webinar 2 weeks ago. And it, basically covers the same thing with Presswork as a company and how they use Vev in their day-to-day life. So some really cool stuff in there. That's Bjorn with his nice smiley face.
Yeah,
A great smile he has.
yeah. I just
And
want to say I love him so much. I've been lucky enough to work and also have meetings with him, and he's like the best super user we could have had. So I'm
yeah,
super glad to see that he
yeah,
was.
it was really cool to have him last week.
Yeah.
Um, so what we can move into now is the sort of some inspiration pieces, like moving back onto animation. So we've got a few pieces of client work which is on our showcase page, which I want to sort of go through just because I think the way they've used animation is really clever. Some of them are really subtle. This first one I'm going to show you from Message Lab, and they've got a page called Service Now. They've really taken the concept of animation in Vev and really ran with it. So first of all, you can see on this sort of landing page here that we have like a video in the background, not necessarily animation, but it does give that fluidity to the page. So there is some subtle movement and makes you want to continue scrolling. They've done this clever like line around the box as well, which they've used with they've they've created by using what's it called, staggered animation. Is that right? Is that
Yeah.
what I'm looking for? Yeah. So basically, they put this in a frame and then stagger the animation to draw this line around. And then this part with the trapeze, this is probably like my favorite animation piece ever done in Vev. So they've used frames and they've put different content, or like for example, they've put this trapeze here in the corner of that frame to make a sort of like a rotating effect. So you've got these two trapezists. Is that the right term? I don't think it is, but
Yeah,
I'm
I
running with
think so.
it.
Yeah.
And they're going into each other. But this is done by scroll animation, and I think it's just
Yeah. So
really,
beautiful.
it's just really cool, and it's really thinking outside the box, I think, of animation. And then as we scroll down, they're using just very subtle animations coming in for all the different parts of the page, and it just adds that want to keep scrolling as a user. So it's just really engaging, and they've got some great content in here. Um, they have some like charts and stuff like that which load in. This bit with the birds with the scroll animation is really cool as well. They sort of fade in and sort of fly off to the right, which is really cool. And then they also use a sticky element here. So you've got basically a Q&A with this vice president here, and you can see the Q&A, and this is sticking here as well. So this is another example of fluidity, sort of over animation, I guess. But yeah, I think they've done a really, really good job here.
It's so good. And just to go back to the movement in the hero header. So in the piece that I wrote about how to create an effective landing page, during the research, I found a study that actually adding movement to your hero header or has been found to increase conversion up to 80%. So it's super effective. And yeah, it's just a bit more captivating. And yeah, as you said, it wants you to, or you want to sort of continue looking at this page a bit.
Yeah, it's really about giving that first impression as soon as you can to make sure that person doesn't bounce from your page. So I
Yeah.
think, yeah, that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And then moving over to this next one. So this is from a UX UI designer called Colin Reeds, I think, if that's how you pronounce it. So again, he's put a video in there of just himself, but it's really eye-catching. And you can see this animation just popping in and out from the bottom to sort of encourage you to scroll down, which is really subtle, but I think it works really well. And as you scroll, then they've got like a parallax effect coming in, giving information about what they do. And then we have here an animation of text scrolling along. So this is really popular at the moment, which is like sort of a ticketed item. And we can show you how to do that shortly as well, because I think a lot of people off the bat, they might not know how to build it in Vev. But I think, yeah, it just looks really cool. And
Yeah.
then they've also got this sort of show hide effect where you hover over a specific part of this menu here, and then you've got this image here, and it has a parallax mouse movement to it as well, so it kind of moves with your mouse, which is really cool. And again, it's very simple and eye-catching, but it adds that extra element of professionalism, I think, as well. And as you're scrolling down, they've got sort of like scroll speed changes, so this title moves at a different speed to the rest of the page. But yeah, it's just really clever, and it's simple and effective, which I think a lot of pages can take a page from that book, I think.
Yeah. It's so
And
cool. And luckily, um, in Vev, we have most of these as add-ons, so it's super easy to attach to any component or widget that's on the canvas. Some require a little bit more work, but hopefully today we're able to show uh, how most of these are possible with
yes,
little work.
and I'm just going to show one more off, which is an article from VG. No idea again, because my Norwegian, as we all know, isn't great. But I'm assuming I think this is from a jeweler. So it gives like information of, I guess, how they built their brand. Um, and then here we've got scrolly telling, which we've covered quite a lot, so we won't go into that too much today. But using scrolly telling is a good way to add that fluidity to your page. And then as we scroll down, there are very subtle animations of things coming in, and like things, coming in and out, which adds a nice effect and movement to the page. And then further down, they have like the sort of hover animation. So as you hover over something, it changes. That's obviously great on desktop devices. On mobile and tablet, obviously hover isn't a thing, so that's worth taking consideration as well. Some video scrolly telling, and and then these sort of like fade animations as well. So this is like a scroll animation, which is really cool. But yeah, anything
Cool.
you want to add on that, Tiril?
No,
Shall we
not really.
move onto our build in public?
Yeah, that's why we're here. That's the fun part.
Jump.
Yeah.
Awesome. As we're going through, guys, we do have the Q&A open, so if you have any questions, feel free to chuck them in.
Yeah.
So I
I'll
am
just, sorry, I'm just chiming. I'll keep an eye on the chat and see what questions are coming in.
awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and open up a blank project and share my screen. Where should we start?
I think the most maybe obvious place to start is with the animation tool, maybe,
Mhm.
and see the possibilities. Um, yeah. What do you
Let's
think
start
about
off.
that?
Yeah, let's start off with that. And I'm just going to add an image element onto the canvas here, just so we have something to animate. And then let's use this picture of these succulents. So here, any element you can attach an animation to. You can also, if you wanted, you can add an animation to an entire section. So add-ons, basically, you can apply to any sections or elements. So it doesn't have to be an image. It can be a text box. It can be a video. It could be anything you want. But in this example here, we've just got a basic image here. And obviously, if we preview, nothing happens because there's no animation to start with. If we select the element and go to the top bar here, on any of the elements that we have, this little puzzle piece icon will appear. So this is the add-ons menu. So if I click on this, it will give us a list of all the different add-ons. In here as well, we've got like a few ones which our developers have made for testing out and things like that. So there might be some in here which aren't public, but one that definitely is public and is used a lot is this animation one. So whenever we click on that animation, it automatically applies it to the element that we selected, and then the contextual menu will pop up. And if you ever close this menu, you can revisit it by clicking the icon at the top here. So any add-ons that you attach will appear here at the top next to that puzzle piece. But you'll also see on the left-hand side here with the layers panel that you have this little icon here as well. So if we click this, it will open up that menu. And then under animation, we have 4 different types of animation triggers. So the first one is load. So this basically plays when this element comes into view. We have click animation. So the animation happens when you click on this element. Hover, same, hover over it. And then you have scroll animations. So the animation on this element is triggered by the user scrolling. And if you really wanted, you could have all 4 of these animations on one element if you really wanted to. A good example for this might be looking back on that last example we had, where we have the sort of like hover over the images and they changed. So you could have a load animation. So when that comes in, it sort of slides in. You could then have the hover animation, so it goes transparent or something when you hover over it. And then you also have a click animation as well. So that kind of works better for tablet and mobile because hover isn't obviously a thing on that. So we're just going to add a simple load animation. So I'm just going to move this menu over here to the right hand side. If we want to select the load animation or the trigger that we want, we can just go over to the right hand side and click on the drop down. And then we're basically asked to have a look at different presets. So we have a handful of different presets in here. So we have slide in. Once you select the preset, it will just give you a little preview. Slide in from left, fade in, pulsate. So this is one that kind of loops. And then change the background color. This isn't necessarily relevant on an image, but you could apply this to a frame and have that background color change. Stagger slide is what I mentioned earlier, where the message lab on that first project we looked at, where the line drew around. So basically, if you have a frame and you stagger slide, all the elements in that frame will animate one after another. And there's a few settings you can change for like how quick that does it and the delay between them and things like that. And then we have the option custom. So custom allows us to basically make this however we want. So under the options here, we have duration. So this is basically how long it takes for that animation to fully load. So obviously if it's a shorter number, the animation will be quicker. And if it's longer, it will be slower. We have delay. So once this element comes into view, if, for example, we have a delay on 2 seconds, once it comes into view after 2 seconds, then the animation will play. So this is really good if you want to store or sort of stagger things and not use the stagger slide. If you want to like have things popping up and fading at different times, you can add delays to them to have make sure that running order is in the way that you want it to be. Then we have the animation curve. So if it's linear, it will just follow one curve. What I'll do is I'm just going to put a
Lewis, can you just move the animation to the left of the screen because our faces are covering the
oh, there we go.
settings now. Cool, thanks.
So I'm just going to I'm just going to put this to slide in. So we already have some things pre-populated in here. So for example, with this animation curve, we can change like if it's quad, cubic. So this is basically how quickly it comes in. You can see on the curve here, or whether it's linear and it's just very straight. And if you want to add a spring to it, it kind of adds a bit more of a more natural movement to your animations rather than just having it go linear. obviously linear has its place in some places, like for like scroll animations, things like that, where you can make sure that it's like one-to-one movement. But for this one, we'll just keep it on quad. You can also change the easing as well. So if you want it to ease in or ease out, you can select this and change it to ease in, ease out, or have both if you want to as well. Then we have loop, so kind of self-explanatory that the animation will just keep running back and forth. And then we also have the option to run once. Basically, what this means is if, for example, if I preview, the animation plays. If I go away from that element and come back to it, the animation will play again. Whereas run once, if I have this ticked, the animation will play. If I go away and come back, the animation will stay at its end state. So if you want, the first initial load to have all the animations, but if somebody's like scrolling back up and down the page, you don't want it to happen each time, that's the option you would select. And then you have your effect options. So in this example, we have the opacity going from 0 to 1, so it fades from nothing to a solid. And then we can change the movement as well. So if I want it to come up from a larger point away, I can set that to, for example, 100%, and you can see there will be 100% of the size of that element. Or if you just want a subtle animation, you can have that on 10%, or whatever you want. We can then add additional effects as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be on the custom one, but if I press effects, we can then add background, so that will change the background color. We can make it so the border radius changes as it loads in, color. So this more specifically would work for if you had a shape or something like that, where you can change the actual SVG color and you can change it from black to whatever you want it to be. Move horizontally, which works like this, like we have here with vertically, but in a different axis. We have rotate, scale, and stagger. And those are the sort of presets that we have in here. So using these, you can create some really interesting concoctions, like the first one we showed where they used the trapeze and the scroll effect. There's also mixtures of having things. You can also have multiple animations. So if, for example, I wanted this to like move in and fade and stuff like that, if you put this in a frame, so I'm going to press Command G for this. So that's now put it in the frame here on the left-hand side. I could also add an animation to that frame as well. So we can create like a multiple layers of different animations if you want to make something a bit more complex. Anything to add on that, Tiril?
No, not really.
No?
No questions has come in yet, so must be clear. Or
Cool.
they're a little bit shy. Could be that as well, but it's
Maybe so.
yeah.
What I'll do to demonstrate the sort of ticker tape that we had and that we mentioned earlier is I am going to add a text box, and I'm going to write my email address, design, and I'm just going to make this nice and big. And basically for this, what we want to do is we're going to create, so if I put like a pipe in, and I'm going to basically just keep copying and pasting this. So essentially what we're going to do is make this run off the screen. I'm just zooming out so I've got this. I'm going to change the width, and I'm just going to keep putting these in. So we've got like a handful of my different emails in there, and I'm just going to basically stretch out this container so it's coming off the screen. If I come right out, and the longer this is, the longer the animation will obviously appear on the screen. So if I bring this in a little bit more and zoom in, so we have this element which is running all the way off screen. And if we want to create this sort of ticker tape sort of effect, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an animation. So again, going to the add-ons, going to animation, and for this, we're going to have a load animation. You could also put this on a scroll as well if you wanted to. We're going to select custom. And then for the effect, we're going to make it move horizontally. So you can see here, there's like a preset in here of 100 pixels, but we want it to move the other way. So we're going to set this to, so 0 is the starting position, and say how long is this? So it's 7,000 pixels wide. So if I set this to say 7,000 pixels, that's going to run the entire length. Maybe it's a bit too much because it is cutting some off at the end. So maybe if we go with 6,000, 5,000. Oh, almost there. 4,000. There we go. So we have that effect of that moving. Obviously, that's really quick, so it doesn't really give us that sort of best effect, and you can't really read it. So what we can do now is change the duration to something quite long. So if we say 30 seconds, you can see that animation is now running sort of smoothly. It's easier to read, and it has a nice effect. And then you're probably wondering, like, once it runs to the end of that text box, what happens then? So in this example, it would then stop. But if we don't want it to stop and we want it to sort of keep continuing, we can set loop. So once it gets to that endpoint, it starts to move back in the other direction. So I'm not going to run for the whole thing because otherwise we'll be sat here for a minute waiting for that to go back and forth. But this is how we would do the sort of ticker tape example, and how a lot of the clients in the examples that we've shown today have done this as well. And obviously, if you wanted to add links to these, so if I wanted to add like a mail to for this, I can then double click it, highlight the text I want it to have, and then I can add a link in here via the normal text element in here too. So I can add that as external, or if I wanted that to make that my email, I can set that to email and then type in the email. With the email link too, you can also predefine what the subject is as well. So if it was saying contacts me about a commission, you could change the subject to be commission request, if that's spelled right. That's not spelled right. It's 2 M's. Request, and then I can put my email in at design. And that nicely covers the animation element. Obviously, any questions that you guys have, do have them coming in. And we are also going to have a look at some other different animation types as well. Did you want to go through the Lottie animations, Tiril?
Yeah, or we did make a long list of the things that we want to show.
Yeah.
But we can, just in terms of time, maybe you can just before we jump on the Lottie animation, maybe we can show the word and or the letter animation just
Yes,
while we
that's good.
have you there.
Yeah, nice and simple. So if you want a bit more control with the with your words and letters, we do have two specific elements that cover this. So we have animated letters and animated words. So they're very similar. So the words would be the actual full word popping in, and then the letters would be the specific characters in each of that text. So if I select animated letters, for example, I can draw this in, and then it'll have a preview saying double click to edit. Again, I could put my email address in here, design, and you can see that that plays in there and then fades away. Because we have this on a loop, it will keep playing. If it's not on the loop, it will play just that one time and stay. So let's not preview it. Let's give that a little refresh. There we go. So that's so that basically ends there. But if you go away and come back, go away and come back. Oh no, it just plays that one time. It's in the view. And then we also have the options here for the start delay. So if this goes back to the same as the animation, if you want it to hang around for a little second once that comes into view before playing, you can add a start delay. And then there's a list of different presets in here. Let's stick the loop back on. When you have the loop on as well, there's a fade out animation. So if you want it to be done by the words or by the letters like this, that will sort of fade out the letter by letter. And then we have presets of the different animations. So we have the pop-up, like the one that is in here, or we can have the letters fade in, sort of like as if it's swiping past. Scale in, so they sort of like go small and big and pop into the size. Slide in, roll in, and hop in. So they're all the different presets, and we can also change the easing as well. So if we want to have a different animation curve, we can adjust that to be more subtle or or linear if we want as well. And with this, very similar to animated words, all the options here are the same, except from the animation doesn't do it letter by letter. So if you had like a paragraph, for example, it would do each word instead of the individual letters. Awesome.
Yeah, and just like before, you would then style from the right side panel, just like you would with a normal text box, and change the fonts, size, and all of these things. The only thing that's a little bit different is that you have to enter
The
the
information, yeah,
uh,
into the actual contextual menu when you double click. So to open that, I would then double click, and that brings that up. Or I can right click and select edit content, and that will bring this up here
yeah,
for us. Cool.
cool. Do you want me to show the Lottie
Yeah,
animation?
let's go with that. I'll stop sharing my screen. And
Jump here.
could you please demonstrate how someone could animate an entire section? Someone has asked. Did you want to take that one on?
So we can animate an entire section. Yeah. Do you want me to do that before I jump
Yeah,
into
let's get Julian's questions out the way.
the way? Okay, cool. So let us just add a section. Now I'm just selecting an image section. Cool pro tip. Um, we have a lot of components that are available both as a section but also as an element. So in this case, you will then see that I chose an image. You can hold Option. I'm using a Mac. If you are using Windows, there is a different command. But
I
yeah, for
I
now,
want to
I'm just
say it's
using
Alt, but I'm not 100% sure.
yeah. But the correct message will be there depending on your computer. So if I hold in Option, I can then select where to add the section. Do I want it to be at the top or at the bottom? I will just click it here to have it stack on top of the blank section. I will then select an image. Uh, at this point, people must be so bored with seeing the same
Those
stock
same
images.
pictures, yeah. I know I am.
Me too. Yeah, and just like with any other element, the thing that's different is basically what you select. So I could have had an image on top here, just for show. I'm going to keep it here. So like you did, you just selected it. If you are uncertain what you have selected, always you can look here in the layers panel to see what's highlighted, but also you can see here at the very top of the right side what you're actually working with. So in this case, I would then click on the outside, which then will or select the section instead, and then just click add-on, and then you can add animation just like before. And let's say here that we want to do fade in, for example. Let's do a little bit of a longer duration for it. And you can also add delay ease. Let's do like this, for example, and a little bit longer. Sometimes you just have to play around and see what you're happy with. And that's a cool thing about the canvas being live, is that you can see them while you are tweaking with them. The only thing to keep in mind here, as you saw, is that once you're adding an animation to a section, it will then automatically animate everything that is within. So in this case, the image here will also be animated in the same way as the section. So just keep that in mind if that's something that you want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it'd be a good idea if you, for example, take that image element and make 3 of them and show how the stagger would work if you added that to the section. 2 or
To
2 is fine.
Yeah, but I would then need to do a oh yeah, with these yeah, let's see if we can do that. First time doing it live here in public with you guys. So let's see how it oops. So here we select these two. So basically what you wanted me to test here, Lewis, is uh, seeing the staggered animation with the whole
The whole
section.
section, yeah.
but also with and see how these would behave with it.
Mhm.
Let me just go here. Then we
I hope
can
I'm not
try.
setting you up for failure here.
But I haven't tried it. That is a cool thing about it. It's like it's sort of limitless. And even though I've worked here and worked with a lot of projects for a long time, I haven't reached the ends of it. So here you could see it. So maybe we can add that to a little bit faster as well. Stagger what we ooh, from first scale element. Do we want it to scale? Maybe let's see. Oh, that was a little bit too much. Here we play in public. Cool. Boom. And here you can also see from which position you want it to start. So let's see if we want to do this instead or from to. Okay. Let's see if we add this to be 100 instead. Let's see what happens. Yeah. So then it goes downward. So let's do it this way. Cool.
And we could also,
So
if
now
you
we
want
have.
to as well, add one of the effects as opacity, so they would be invisible when they first came onto the page, and then move up and
Yeah.
become.
We can add more effects on the opacity here like this. Let's just go into preview. Boom. So as you see here, the whole like the background section starts and then the elements in the order that they appear in here in the layers panel will then stagger in. So that's a cool effect. I should probably start using that more, but
Yeah,
now you see at least how it works.
very cool.
Hopefully that answered the question about how animation works with section. And this works with any section, so you can have a slideshow section, anything basically. So yeah. Okay, let's
Amazing.
jump into the Lottie animation. So Vev supports Lottie animation. So let's say that you have created this cool vector animation and you want it to be inside of Vev. And of course, sometimes you don't want to start from scratch and animate everything every little bit, and sometimes it's not even possible. But then luckily, we support Lottie animation. So what we have here in the add menu, you see that we have Lottie animation here. And then you can just either draw it out like this to size, or you can just click to add. And then you will see on double click here is that you can upload a file, and then we have a few configurations to play around with. So what I usually do, and also unless you are an Adobe After Effects uh, master, then you can go on the internet and download some for free, or also you can pay for it. But then we have something called Lottie files. Here they have, if we go to the front page,
We'll just pop that in the chat as well for anybody who wants to have a look at that.
yeah. Oh, right now, you want to start with all of this? Okay, let's go here. Did it just update? Oh, I ended up in the app. So let's just go to Lottie files. Either way, here you can browse libraries of free JSON files or Lottie files. I thought this one was cool, so because it has a dog and it has a cat in it, so in
Can't go
there.
wrong.
And here you can then click it. The cool thing here as well, you can do some tweaks. You can change the animation speed directly in the Lottie Files webpage. You can change the background color and so on. There are additional things that you can tweak for a little bit of money, and then you have to pay for it. But there are minor things that you can do for free, which is quite cool. And then once you're happy with it, let's just download it as a JSON file. I know that they have come with a new format, which is .lottie, that I don't know too much about, but we can jump into that later. And then once that is downloaded, we can go back into Vev. I can then either drag it in or I can click here to select. It will look a little bit weird in the preview, but here you have it. And then we have here play animation when visible on hover, click, and scroll. So it's the same actions or oops that you have in and triggers that you have in the animations tool. So you should be familiar with that. Here again, you can loop it. You can set the speed here as well if you want it to be a lot quicker. And then you can also preserve the aspect ratio if you want to. And then once it's here, you can then draw it to size if you want it to be bigger, smaller, and so on. And then, oops, preview. And then you have a cute little friend or family group there on your page, adding some movement and fluidity basically on the
Yeah.
post.
And
And
the one thing about Lottie files compared, you might be saying, "Oh, why would I use a Lottie file? And why wouldn't I just use a GIF?" So
yeah,
the biggest thing with Lottie files is they were specifically developed to sort of counter the large file sizes of GIFs, but also the low quality of GIFs. So
yeah,
obviously you can have high quality GIFs, but they can be quite large in file. Whereas JSON files, because they work with in vectors, so things like if you're aware of Illustrator and how that renders things. And also with SVGs, you can have it as big as you want without it going pixelated. So it uses that same concept but has it as an animation. So the the two outputs of that is firstly they're really low file size, and secondly they're really high quality. So they don't, if you have it as big as you want, they don't go pixelated, which is really cool. And I just
yeah,
had a look at the difference between .lottie. So .lottie is
yeah,
sort of new file format, and you can all. I guess the advantage of it is that you can have multiple animations or Lottie animations, like different Lottie animations, into one file. So it sort of like condenses that even further.
yeah. So highly recommend, especially with the free ones, go around or go ahead, play around with it. I think it is quite fun, and you, especially nowadays, you see that these illustrations and these movements are pretty popular and it's pretty trendy to add to your page. So yeah, it's at least worth a shot to try out. I was also just looking at our list, Lewis, and because we do have a few more add-ons that I think are a bit fun in terms of playing with hover and so on. So we have the cursor tilt and all of these things. Should we go ahead and show that?
I think so. Yeah, I think they kind of cover animations. I think that's good.
Yeah, cool. I'm just gonna have a
Someone
look
has
here.
also asked, which we can cover after this, how
Yes.
you would create an animated chart in Vev. So we can have a look
Yeah.
afterwards. Thank you for the question, Jacqueline.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm a little bit too quick with the clicking. Sorry here. Here. Yeah. So we have a few traits in our add menu where you can easily add some movement and some triggers with just hovering with your cursor. So let's just jump in here and I will show you. Let me know if it's too small here. I have a tendency to zoom out a lot. So let's just show the cursor tilt. It's very easy. It's an add-on, meaning that you will attach it for an added effect or a filter to anything on the canvas. I will then just click this, and then you will see here that you can play around with the tilt angles. So it goes from 0 to 90. Here you see what it looks like with when the x-axis is 20, and the same with y, just to show you what it looks like if I increase it. You'll see that it will go further in or tilt in. Oops. And then I will also show you very quickly how it looks like with the on the y-axis. So it will just spin around itself. But I'll just go back to 20. You can also play around with the depth. Okay, so let's see. Then we try 500 here. 1,000 is the normal. And if we do 2,000, yeah. So you'll see how far in it will go. But I'll just keep it at 1,000. And then there's some glare that you can add, as you see here, once it's tilting to sort of give the 3D effect. You can add glare opacity, you can add or change the color to it, and also where the position of the glare should be. Um, Track on window. This one I'm not super familiar with, but I'll see what it does afterwards. But the cool thing now is if I then go into preview, I can then, this is what it looks, but as I start sort of interacting with the page, oh yeah, here you see, and then you will see here the glare is at the bottom, which has been defined to be, and yeah, so not a lot you need to do. The presets that are there does a lot, but then you can do a lot of extra configurations to it if you want to. I'm just going to go ahead and just remove this one, and then I will also show you the mouse move parallax, which I also think is quite cool.
It's one of my
Uh,
favorite elements,
yeah.
for sure.
Again, it's an add-on, so just make sure to add it to your elements. Here we have it. Yes, and then when you here you have the movement factor. Oops, why do I keep doing that?
Double clicking on the old trackpad too much.
Yes. So there we do it. So now if I just use the default settings and go into preview, you will then see that these images are moving in the opposite direction as the cursor moves. And then you can also go here and let's say that you wanted to move against or not move against. You can then see here that you can play around and have like a little cool cursor animation happening on it. And here, if you wanted to, because I'm not sure what the max here is, to be honest, but let's see if we bump it up to 10. You will then see that it will move a lot. So, but this is quite subtle with the one, which is also nice. But maybe sometimes you want to be like sort of a maximalist and just have it move around.
Yeah,
So
that's cool.
yeah, it's super, super cool. So those are probably the ones that I was like, I feel like most people are able to use this with very little work and have a huge impact on the fluidity on the page. But it's also because we were when we were planning for this, like what's the difference between fluidity and interactivity? So this way, or this is sort of somewhere in between.
Yes, I
Uh,
agree.
yeah, it is a cursor interacting with a page on hover, but also it's like yeah, it's giving fluidity. So you're not like clicking and it has something appear. Yeah, so it's a nice mix of both. If yeah, wonder what the maybe the audience have a different opinion, but for me, it gives both.
And someone's asked I guess within these add-ons, can you make an element image spin automatically, like a cursor activated tilt? I'm not sure.
Spin. Could you just read it out for me again?
Can you make an element brackets image spin automatically, like a cursor activated tilt? Would be cool if it could reveal an image on the back of the image.
Oh yeah. Uh, Help me out here, Lewis. What would we thinking
I'm
of the
not
logic
quite
here?
sure of a way of doing it, but
Yeah.
the only way I can think about doing that is if it was a 3D object and you
Okay.
had, on the 3D object, you can select it to be automatically rotate. That's the only way I would think about doing that. But it's obviously not a very easy thing to do because you would have to then create a 3D object with an image on the back and the front.
Yeah, I'm because I was like, of course we can do some rotation here, but this is where it sort of like gets into the complexity of, and also the um, possibilities with animations. You can do a lot, but you just need to figure out the steps of how they should
Hmm.
trigger. But you can rotate here, but and then maybe with opacity, but then you need to have the image in the back appear. And I'm not sure if we're able to do that, but you can play around with rotation if that's what was the question.
Yeah.
Here with the load animation, we then have custom. Click custom. It's part of the effects. We have rotate, so you can. Oh, this is. I think it's my trackpad. Who that's because I'll try to be very very careful.
Yeah.
360. Yeah, and then I can't. Yeah, even quicker maybe. Yeah, and then you can play around with this, and you can have some cool things here. But I'm not sure. That's probably a terrible answer to the whole question. But I think this is a lesson, or not a lesson, but maybe we can look at this question afterwards and post it, maybe on
Do
Discord.
that. Yeah, we can
How
have a
we
look.
would,
Yeah,
yeah,
we'll get back to you on that one, I think. And yeah,
yeah,
if you check out the Discord, we'll post it on there. What I'll do, I'll just take over quickly and then just go
yeah,
through Jacqueline's question on about the animated charts, and then I
yeah.
think we're at full time. So that
Already.
that's flown by.
Yeah, yeah. We definitely need to do more of these, Lewis.
Build in public,
Just
yeah,
jump
for
on.
sure. So I have added a chart element onto the canvas. So in the add menu, we do have a charts element. And in here, you can also upload your own information. If I double click on this to open up the contextual menu, I can select what kind of chart I want it to be. Under data, you can build your own tables, but you can also copy and paste from an existing Excel sheet. So if you don't want to have to then type it in manually, you can just paste it in from your Excel file. And then under styling, you can change like the colors of the different sections and stuff like that. Axes, you can define whether you want like tickers to appear and what your minimum maximum value is. Legend is self-explanatory. It displays the information at the top of a page or not. And then we have animations, which is where that magic happens. So if I tick animation, by default it will be add view animation, and then you can select the delay for how long that comes into place before that plays, and then the percentages of the horizontal and vertical. So if I preview, it will start blank, and then those will scale up and appear. We can also set this to a scroll animation. So if I make this section a bit longer, just so we've got a bit of room to play with, if I double click this, go to animations and select the option for a scroll animation. And what this does is basically it stickies it onto the canvas, and then as you're scrolling, that animation will play. So if I want the scroll length, let's say I want it to be like 500, so the distance would be 500 pixels long. And then I want it to pin when it's about, I don't know, 50, maybe say 100 pixels from the top. So that's when at what point it will stick. So this, say, is 105. So if it's 100, once it gets to this point here, that's when it will stick. So if I preview, it will stick straight away. So if I start scrolling now, it's not doing what I thought. We need to tweak the settings a little bit. Double click that, animations, scroll length. Let's bring that down to 100 like it was before. You sort of see that in there. I mean, I have to tweak with the settings. I'm not fully familiar with doing the scroll animation, but that's how you would do it in there. So you basically go into there, add scroll animation, and then adjust these settings until you get that point where you'll have that scroll activated animation. And then obviously, yeah, we have the view one as well. And yeah, hope that
Yeah.
answers your question. Um,
And just like a little to the audience, while we or when you are playing with animation, it does require a lot of complex uh, like math in the background. So sometimes if you're playing and like adding and tweaking a lot to the animations and adding a lot of animations, it might be a little bit weird when you preview it first time. But if you hit the refresh on the canvas, it will then recalculate that page. So it's very bottom there and to the right. I see that the our faces are covering it. Then you
oh,
can refresh the page, and then the animation will yeah, be reset in a way, so it works the way it should be. But that's
amazing.
just the way that it works on the canvas. Yeah,
Perfect. Can you add animation add-on to the chart elements? Yeah, you can, yes. However, it won't animate the specific bars, but it will animate the entire block. So say if you have that chart and you wanted it to slide in, you can do that. And also like scroll in and stuff like that. But it won't animate the specific bars. You would have to do that via the contextual menu. So if you double click it and go to the animations tab, that's where you would set the animations for those bars or lines or donut or whatever chart that you have going there.
yeah,
But yeah, that's our time. We're at the end, and I think that's been a very fun and productive build in public. I think. You
yeah,
agree, Tyrrell?
yeah, definitely. Just a note to ourselves, Lewis, is that we really also wanted to cover menus today because it does have a lot of interactivity and animation to it. So I think we should just take a note behind our ear that we cover that in another session. Just
I
keep
think
that
so.
a
Potentially
promise to ourselves.
for our next one, we can go through menus if everyone's up for that.
Yeah,
I think so.
yeah,
Yeah, we'll be back in 2 weeks' time. Marlon will be back with us. Thank you, Terrell, for joining me today. It was very, very insightful and nice to
yeah.
have a co-host and not do this on my own.
No, my pleasure. Also, I'm just adding another little tip there for the audience in terms of animated icons. You can implement them in Web just with the Lottie component. So, if you want to have some animated icons, there's a great library there as well. So,
Yeah.
uh,
And you would
stay
add
updated.
those with the Lottie element, and I think there's an option, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, in the contextual menu of the Lottie animation, you can set it to animate on hover. Is that
Mm.
right? So that's how would those like sort of icons that are reactive would work. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can the same triggers: hover, click, load, and scroll.
yeah,
Yeah,
perfect. Amazing, amazing. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Tyrrell, and I will see you in a couple of weeks' time. And yeah, we'll post on social what that will be. Thinking it might be menus, but I can't. I'm not going to promise anything just in case we have a special guest. But
yeah, that is true.
yeah, I will. Yeah, see you guys in a couple of weeks. Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.